Okay, let's do that. Let's get back to the Zoom. How are we doing? Spotlight. And we are ready. I think. Here we go. Okie dokie, welcome everybody. We are live on the recording and we are going to start our 3-step program. We're going to try and talk about what's going on this week on the calendar. And from there we're going to go on to what's going on this week in the Parshah. And then of course we're looking for one practical, relevant life message to take with us from this week's Parshah and to energize us to be able to be more productive, more active, and lead a more meaningful life. Most importantly, that will bring us to the goal, will put us into redemption mode, destination mode, where we're not free-falling, but we know where we're going, and we have all the energy and the drive to be able to go that way. So let's do it. Let's get involved. We're starting off with what's going on the calendar this week. And we can go backwards because last night, was Lag Ba'omer, the 18th day of Iyar. Took me a second to remember that. But the 18th day of Iyar, the life, the Chai, the 18th day of Iyar is by far and large the Hasidic energy, the mystical energy, the deeper energy that is involved in every part of the Omer, especially in the Chodesh Iyar. We spoke the last year, which was 2 weeks ago, we spoke about the importance of the month of Iyar. Iyar is the month we're in. We just had the 18th, today's the 19th of Iyar. And this entire month is marked with every single day counts. It's the day that counts as in that it's important, but also it's a day that we count the Omer, making sure that every day in this time of the year is bringing us from Pesach, from leaving Egypt, from breaking into freedom, all the way to getting ready to be able to receive Hashem's Torah of freedom, which is the Har Sinai moment of Shavuos. And in the process from getting from Mitzrayim, from Egypt, to getting the receiving of the Torah, Har Sinai is a journey that we take, and every single day counts. And the entire month that we're in now, the entire month of Iyar, is included in this count. So the previous month is also somewhat included. Next month will be a little bit included. This is an entire month of all of it. And the chayas, the life of all this counting, of these all important days, is found in the day of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Simchasi the Rashbi. The idea of celebrating a tzaddik's passing is strange, even on religious standards, on Yiddishkeit standards. Usually, the day of a tzaddik's passing is marked with fasting. If not fasting, it's a serious introspective day. It's a day that we take to heart, and a day that we invest extra energy in being more serious, more focused. Yet the Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, asked us to do that in a way of simcha. So much so that there was one of the tremendous Talmidim of the Arizal, who was just 400 years ago one of the greatest Mukubalim that we know of in recent history. And one of his Talmidim would fast and mourn the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash every single day of the year. But on Lag Ba'omer, his teacher, the Arizal, told him that the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is tremendously unhappy with the fact that he didn't follow the instruction, the request to make the day a day of joy. The day of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is passing a joy, and therefore he should not have mourned even the Beis Hamikdash. Even the Churban HaBayis is not enough of a reason to be sad on Lag Ba'omer on the Yud Ches Iyar. Because the Simcha of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, although it's the day of his passing, it's referred to as Hilula de Rashbi, the wedding ceremony of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the day that his neshama ascended L'mayla, went back to heaven. But it's a day in which his entire life mission, which he completed on the day of his passing, is so important to everybody who is here, those who live on. That's you and me. It recalls out and requires from us to celebrate and rejoice this completion which took place on the passing of Rosh Hashanah as directed by He Himself. So what's the excitement? What's the life that we take from it? And the answer is Pnimius HaTorah, the inner parts of the Torah, the understanding that although we know the do's and the don'ts from the halacha and the Shulchan Aruch, and it's as precious as ever, that's the surface of the depth of layers upon layers, on which every time we do a mitzvah, and every time we get ourselves involved in doing what Hashem wants us to do, that's what's taking place underneath the cover. The recipe inside the external product, that's the Pnimis HaTorah that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai dedicated his life to sharing. Now it's true that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is one of the most quoted sages in the whole Talmud. I think he's number 4. And there's a lot of sages. And Rabbi Shimon is one of the most quoted ones. Yet although he had such an enormous halachic authority, we mark his day more by talking about his non-halachic, his more mystical side. Because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was unique in the sense that he excelled in both areas of Torah. The halachic Talmudic side, and equally also the Pnimius, the Nister, the secrets of Torah, the mystical side of Torah, sharing with us. It wasn't in a direct way back then. Very few people knew what he was teaching up until much, much more recently. But this was the gift that Shimon Bar Yochai gave to us. And what's fascinating to see is how many people who maybe don't even celebrate Sukkot, they possibly don't even keep 8 days of Pesach. Come Lag Ba'omer, they're celebrating. This year, unfortunately, Meron wasn't available to Yiddish people to go up to celebrate. I'm sure Rabbi Shimon will be taking the necessary steps to make sure whoever caused that, the Hezbollah Yamach Shemam and all their cronies, will pay the price. And Hashem will certainly give us a tremendous victory and Yeshua for all those people and Nachama for those who need. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's day, his day of celebration, is marked by whole circles and all sorts of levels of Yiddishkeit, and so many different people get involved, millions, in the Simcha of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Because at the core, in the Pnimius, in the depth, every single person counts equally. Because at the core, we're the same. Which is why so many people who don't find their connection necessarily with some of the rituals or the mitzvahs that we do, yet for Rabbi Shimon, they find a deeper, stronger, maybe inexplicable connection. This is Lag Ba'omer. We just finished marking it, and the energy is still simmering, and we take this koyach with us this week. But it happens to be that this coming Shabbos is also a big Shabbos. Because this coming Shabbos is going to be Shabbos Chazak. Why is it Shabbos Chazak? Because we're finishing the Parshah of Bechukosai, which means it'll be the final Parshah in the book of Vayikra, which makes it the Shabbos in which in Shul will say Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek. Be strong and strengthen each other. And as we spoke, each time we have a Chazak, we remind ourselves that our koyach, our strength, comes from learning Torah. And as the Gemara describes, that even those who don't have a mitzvah to learn themselves, they get tremendous schar by supporting and encouraging those who have to learn and should learn Torah. When they help them learn, whether it's their husbands or their children or somebody else, and we allow them, we help them, we encourage them. Not to learn. To be able to learn Torah, that itself creates tremendous brachas. That gives us koyach, chazak. V'nis chazek, we strengthen each other because we look out for each other, and as we're doing right now, we learn with each other as well. Chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek. This is this week's Shabbos. Now, what happens to be that in addition to being Shabbos chazak, it is also Shabbos mevarachim. What's mevarachim? We're blessing the new month, and not just any month, the month of Sivan, the month of Matan Torah, the month of Yud Beis Sivan. This is the month, and this is the Shabbos we'll be benching this month, of Matan Torah, of the gift that Hashem gave to us, the gift of all gifts, the gift of Torah. So it's a special week. We've just started the week with Lag Baimer, and we're simmering with the koiches. We're driving straight into a Shabbos of Chazak, and a Shabbos of Mevorachim, and therefore there's lots of koiches that we might not have been aware of, or we might sleepwalk through, and we challenge ourselves tonight to try and wake up to the koiches that are being made available to us for our missions in our personal life, and of course as a general rule, a general Klal Yisrael and the whole world over, to be able to make Nisei Nisim happen, and the Gola be our reality. That's what's going on the calendar this week. What's going on in the Parshah this week? So Parshas Bechukosai is a very loaded Parshah. In which way is it a loaded Parshah? So Parshas Bechukosai isn't enormously long, and many a year Bahar and Bechukosai would be joined together. So last week's reading and this week's reading will be read together. But Parshas Bechukosai, the bulk of the Parsha, starts off with talking about all the good brachas and blessings that we get. Prosperity and good health and fantastic, wonderful things that we get if we behave. If we do the right thing. If you sit and learn Torah with tremendous commitment. And we make sure to keep all the mitzvahs. There'll be the appropriate livelihood and the appropriate blessings will flow in the right time. It will be v'shaftem ve'ein macherit. It will be peaceful. And as Chazal tells us, not only you won't have wars going on, there'll be no need to display any arms. And nobody will pass by or display arms back because the time will be peaceful. That's a bracha and a guarantee that we have from Hashem when we behave. And then a major part of the parsha talks about what happens if you don't. If Chas v'Shalom, the Yiddish people, are not doing what they have to do, then all sorts of rebuke and tremendous warning of galus and persecution and other evils that will befall Chas v'Shalom if we abandon the ways of the promise that we have with Hashem. The Torah then throws in middle of all this tremendous rebuke, which is very difficult to read with the translation. It's much easier to read it just in the Hebrew because if we understand what we're saying, it's really harsh. It's really harsh. You're thrown into that same psukim of Toichacha, you have Hashem guarantees. Even whilst we are in the land of our enemies, the Eibush will never forsake us and will never allow us to be destroyed, chas v'shalom. And that's a promise that Hashem has kept every single generation. Last night we were singing around the bonfire and somebody said, we're going to sing V'hi Sha'amna, because V'hi Sha'amna talks about in every generation they rise with a evil decree against the Yiddish people. Unfortunately, recently it's not been every generation, it's every day, every few weeks there's another gzeira, there's another worry that people have to deal with. But it's Abish's promise, V'hi Sha'amna L'Aviseinu, this promise that Hashem made, including the one that is in this week's Parsha, that keeps us going. So on the one hand, it's got a lot of psukim of difficult reading, Teichacha. There's a lot of promise and hope in it. We're going to come back to this in a moment. I just want to say the end of the Parsha deals with the halachas of Erechin, which is if someone commits to donate the worth of different pledges to the Beis HaMikdash, how one would work out exactly the monetary amount for the different pledges a person might pledge, the worth of a person, the worth of an adult, of a youngster, of a male, of a female, different ways that the Torah figures out the costings, who has to evaluate a field if it's been donated, and how much does it cost to redeem, and this additional levies that are added on to the main price, capital price, and of course there's also a number of other mitzvahs included when it comes to donations, like the mitzvah of Meiser for produce and for behemoths. So, that's the general gist of the parsha. I just want to go back for a second to the Toichacha, and point out that this week's Parshas Bechukosai is 2 readings before Shavuos. This week is Bechukosai. Next Shabbos will be Bamidbar, and Shavuos will follow Shabbos Parshas Bamidbar, and that's how it's set up year after year. Almost every year we'll have Bamidbar directly before Shavuos, and Bechukosai before but one to Shavuos. And the idea is, Shavuos marks the receiving of the Aseret HaDibros, Matan Torah. And before we go to Matan Torah, we have to take our Yiddishkeit seriously. And that's why we read about the seriousness of our choices. We matter. Our choices matter. There are real consequences to our choices. It's not just make-believe. Hashem cares about what we do or don't do. And we read about it before we get ready for Matan Torah. And nevertheless, there'll be a week buffer between the Teichacha and its harshness and the actual Matan Torah, which will be next week, Parshas Bamidbar, which we'll talk about Be'ez Hashem next week, all being wrong. But I want to go back to, that's the general gist of the Parsha. Let's talk about one particular message from the Parsha, and we're going to zoom in towards the end of the Parsha. And the lesson we're going to walk away with is a lesson in gratitude. And we're going to learn that gratefulness is good for you. Saying thank you isn't just about doing the right thing. It actually pays off. Saying thank you isn't easy. And saying thank you sincerely is certainly not easy. But an insincere compliment is always better than sincere insult. And an insincere thank you is probably better than no thank you. Here we go. We're going to be talking about gratitude. And we're going to learn in this week's Parsha a very interesting, it's almost the first half of the Sikha is quite Talmudic. I'm going to try and simplify it. And the reason why it finds itself in the Sikha is because it's very connected to the Parsha, but this talk was actually given at a Siyum on Masechtas Erechin. That particular Sikha was said when the Rebbe had personally learned the whole Masechtas Erechin, and at the ceremony in which the Rebbe was completing Masechtas Erechin, the Rebbe said this Sikha that describes a thought which is quite detailed from the idea of Erechin and gives us a message for day-to-day living of gratitude and how good it is for us to be able to be grateful. And when we say good, we don't just mean you'll have a happy life, which is also included. It means we'll be more switched on. Our life will be more geuladik. We will be welcoming Mashiach. We'll make Hashem more comfortable in our homes if we can be more grateful. And that lesson is learned from this week's Parsha from Erechin, which we'll talk about. So the first thing we're going to ask ourselves is, what is Erechin? What is Erechin that we're mentioning over and over again? It's in this week's Parsha. We're going to just summarize very briefly what Erechin is. Erech means an evaluation. Or a valuation. To evaluate something is to be ma'arich something with an ayin. Erech with an aleph is length. Erech with an ayin is its value. So Erechin is the idea or the concept, the subject of evaluations. And we're talking specifically the evaluations not of buying and selling property, but of donations to the Beis HaMikdash. Erechin. So if someone were to say, Erech Ploini Olai, the value of so-and-so is upon me, meaning that they will take upon themselves to donate that amount to the Beis HaMikdash. Erech Ploini, the value of so-and-so, Olai, is upon me to donate to the Beis HaMikdash. They now have a self-imposed, biblical, midoraisa, mitzvah. So it's a self-made mitzvah. They've committed to it, and they have a mitzvah to go and find that money and donate it to the Beis HaMikdash because it matches the words that they spoke out. Erech Ploini Olai, the value of such and such or so and so is upon me. And it's a big idea. And it happens to be that that particular tractate in Gemara is very detailed. It's quite complicated. And it's one of those great Masechtas that we didn't learn when we were kids, but it's a Masechta that's very inclusive. And that Masechta, Maseches Erechin, is the one that is based on this week's Parshah. And the Sikha is on a hadron of that particular Masechta. Start off with a quick Maisa, a story about Masechtas Erechin, because it gives us a little idea and insight to how much we can learn from the concept of valuations, even if it's not about the halacha itself, but it gives us an idea of how much message it carries for us in our personal life. So here's the idea, the Maisa of Maseches Erechin. I'm trying to remember. I think the person in the story is Reb Hillel. But the story goes, I'm not going to keep saying Reb Hillel because I'm not 100% sure it was him. I think it was. But he wanted to meet the Alter Rebbe. So he traveled to meet the Alter Rebbe. And as he came into town, looking to meet the Alter Rebbe, he found out that the Alter Rebbe had just left. Okay, so he settled, he rested. And you've asked, where's the Alter Rebbe travel to? To such and such a town. So after he finishes resting, he picks himself up and he travels to the next place where the Alter Rebbe traveled on. And as he gets to that town where the Alter Rebbe traveled to, he finds out the Alter Rebbe had already left. So he tries to find out where the next place is, and then he slowly starts realizing that every time he comes to the town where he's supposed to and he's hoping to meet the Alter Rebbe has already left. And he realizes something's up. Either the Alter Rebbe doesn't want to meet him, or Hashem is orchestrating, it's going to be tricky. So he decides that maybe if he demonstrates more effort, that's what it needs, so that Hashem should allow him the schos of meeting the Alter Rebbe. So instead of asking where the Alter Rebbe has gone to next, he asks, where does the Alter Rebbe go to next, and where's the place after that? Where the Alter Rebbe is traveling to after the place he is, 2 steps ahead, and he figures he'll outsmart and outmaneuver. And he travels to the town where the Alter Rebbe is supposed to go 2 times. And he gets there before the Alter Rebbe even come to town. And he finds out who is likely to be hosting the Alter Rebbe when he comes. Knocks on the fellow's door and he says, I know you're supposed to be hosting the Alter Rebbe. I need a favor. I need you to let me into your house and let me hide under the bed in the room in which the Alter Rebbe will stay, because I must see him, and I've tried so hard to meet him. The fellow has Rachmanis. He realizes, he understands that it's not so pashut, so he allows him in. And there you have the chassid under the bed, waiting for the Alter Rebbe to arrive, and he hears the door open. He can't wait. This is his moment. The Alter Rebbe will come in. He'll pop out from under the bed, and I'll say hello, say Shalom Aleichem. But the Alter Rebbe wasn't maneuvered. Alter Rebbe walks into the room, and as he walks in, before the chassid under the bed had a chance to pop out, he hears the Alter Rebbe say, in his famous sing-song tune, that there could be a young man who has a question that he's prepared to ask in the Masechta of Erechin, which is a very complicated Masechta, and it makes sense that he probably had questions and he was going to use this as an entry point to his conversation to hopefully discuss words of Torah with Alter Rebbe. And he hears the Alter Rebbe say that there could be a young man has a question in the Masechta of valuations. He should know that he should evaluate himself first. He should evaluate himself first. In other words, go back and look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what are you up to? Underneath the bed, the fellow fainted. First of all, the Alter Rebbe knew who was there. He read his mind and knew which question he had prepared. And I'd used that very question to challenge him to grow in his own Yiddishkeit. That was too much. By the time he came to, The Alter Rebbe had left the house, had left town, and he never got to meet the Alter Rebbe in his entire life. But he heard the Alter Rebbe. And he heard a message from the Alter Rebbe that his life mission was to be Meirich himself, to self-evaluate. And of course, Rabbi Hillel was a very, very mehader b'mitzvahs. He was extremely stringent in his own personal Yiddishkeit. But after this story, took it to a whole new level. To be able to evaluate himself every day. That's a little lesson, a little story. The Masechta of Erechin is intricate and is detailed and it's Talmudic, but every part of it, of evaluating whatever it is we're discussing, includes also self-evaluation all the time. So let's jump into the Psukim, and as we said, we're going to look at the verses, the different ways the Psukim seem to be alluding to something, and what we're looking for is the practical relevant element in this whole yeshivisha sugya of Erechin, and we're looking to ask ourselves, where does it leave us? When we finish tonight's class and we finish learning, what are we going to do differently? And as we said at the beginning, we jumped the gun, we said the answer is going to be gratitude, gratefulness, and a lot of it. But let's start from the beginning, let's see how we get along. Let's click the slide here. This is the Pasuk from our Sedra. Parshas Bechukosai, ve'mistei achuzosai, let's get some English, yakdish ish la Hashem. If a person consecrates some of the field of their inherited property to Hashem. So the word consecrate is in English, but if we had to translate it, if a person consecrates, the Hebrew word is yakdish, kiddush. He makes it holy. He dedicates it to holiness. So if a person takes the field of their inheritance, their stei achuza, what they got from their family division that they got from heritage, from the dividing the land of Israel, and they take that property and they make it holy. They dedicate it to Hashem. Consecrate it, whatever that word means. So the valuation, this is the key word erech, yeah? The valuation shall be according to its sowing. How much space do we have in that field? How much plantation space is in that field? Says the pasuk. This is how you evaluate as your field, the following recipe. The valuation shall be according to its sowing, and an area that requires a chomer of barley seeds at 50 shekels, 50 silver shekels. So how big is your field? How many seeds do you need to plant this field? Go to the seed shop and you pick up a couple kilo of seeds and you go to planting barley. Says the pasuk, every weight of a chomer, weight of barley seeds needed for this area of fields, the worth of the field, that size, is 50 shekel. So if you need two chomer bags of seeds to plant your seed field, then it's 250 shekels. It's 100 shekels, silver shekels. And that's how you figure out the valuation of the field that's being consecrated and dedicated to Hashem. So, the Beis HaMikdash receives this donation, and whoever wants to buy it off the Beis HaMikdash doesn't need fields, it needs money in order to be able to keep it going wrong, they would sell it for 100 silver shekels because it's the amount of field that would require 2 bags loads, 2 chayma loads of barley seeds, and that 100 silver shekels would then go to the Beis HaMikdash, buy as keepers, and they would keep the field. So that's how the Torah describes valuation of a field. Interesting. Another pasuk in this week's Sedra, also in the same discussion, talks about a different type of field that the Beis HaMikdash would get, and here it's a slightly varied case. The pasuk starts off with an interesting word, ach, which means however. This was one topic called valuations because somebody was makdish, consecrated, made holy, donated to Hashem, their field. However, kol cherem asher yachrim ish la Hashem, anything that a person declares cherem to Hashem from any of his her property, whether a person, an animal, or part of the inherited field, shall not be sold, nor shall it be redeemed, for all chayrim is holy of holies to Hashem. Now note, the English translation of chayrim in this translation is chayrim. A person declares the field chayrim. So the question we're going to ask ourselves is, what is chayrim? Now it cannot mean donated to Hashem, because as we looked in the previous slide, we said if someone's donated to Hashem, you sell it for 50 shekels, 50 silver shekels per chaymer worth of barley seed plantation. Chayrim obviously means something else. There's one thing called erech, where someone says the value of this field is donated. And there's another thing which is chayrim. Chayrim, when it's donated as a chayrim to Hashem, then it's not sold. It can't be redeemed. And when it's chayrim, it goes holy of holies to Hashem. So before we get carried away with what that means, holy of holies to Hashem, let's talk about the difference between hektish and chayrim. Hektish can be redeemed. Chayrim can never be redeemed. It's lost to the owner and it'll go away. He will never get it back. Whereas hektish, you can go and buy it back and can be the buyer who will exchange his field for the 100 shekels or the 50 shekels per one chaymer. So we're going to discuss what this chayrim is. But before we do that, if anyone has any idea of what the word chayrim actually means, or when else we use the term chayrim, please unmute. Share. We're listening. Chayrim. Anybody? Is chayrim a positive thing? Oh, going once, a message. What does it say? No, chayrim is not anything, excommunication. Okay, very good, very good. Thank you, whoever shared that. You can chat in public as well, or you can unmute. The truth is, I prefer if you unmute rather than chat. It's hard for me to keep an eye on the chat, but that's the idea. The idea is, chayrim usually means that something is expelled. It's become disabandoned, where we let go of something. So if somebody is put into chayrim, I think that's the quote that the person was referring to it, put into chayrim means that somebody is excommunicated and removed from the community. Let's read an interesting another usage of the word chayrim, also from the Torah, and we're going to ask ourselves if it helps us understand what it means that a field is put into chayrim. Let's see text 3. This is a pasuk in Devarim that uses the word chayrim, but it clearly doesn't mean the same thing we're talking about when we, in our Parshah, talk about somebody who's made their field chayrim that becomes holy of holies. Let's see this inside. Pasuk 25, burn the statues of the idols in fire. So idols shall be burned in fire. Do not covet the silver and gold upon them and take it for yourself, lest you stumble because of it, for it's an abomination before your God. If they are gold and silver, jewels and diamonds that were used as part of idolatry, don't touch them, have no interest in it. Just burn it, destroy it, and get rid of it. Don't get involved. It's part of idolatry, nothing doing. Pasuk 26, do not bring abomination into your house, lest you become chayrim like it. You shall utterly revile it and abhor it, for it is chayrim. So chayrim here, clearly, in the context of this pasuk in Devarim, is a no good thing. It's together with abhorrent, and it's an abomination. Don't bring it into your house because it's chayrim. And if you do, then I might become chayrim with it. No, chayrim is something you want to let go, disengage it, have nothing to do with it, chayrim. So now the question becomes, if that's how the Torah uses the word chayrim, what does it mean that somebody made their field chayrim to Hashem and can't be redeemed? Instead, it becomes holy of holies. What are we talking about? Chayrim usually refers to something abhorred and revealed, something that should be destroyed. Why do we use the word chayrim to pronounce a field as holy? So before we get into the choice of wording, we need to first explain what actually it means. Let's just say somebody is in a very difficult situation, chas v'shalom, or somebody has a very difficult plot of land that is causing major anxiety, or it's bringing strings of unhelpful realities. Maybe it gets flooded and then the walls break down and it's just one headache after the next. And at a certain point, the owner of the field says, you know what? I have nothing to do with this field. I can't stand this field. I don't want this field. Get it out of my life. This field is not mine. I have nothing to do with it. That's what chayrim means. If a person says that I remove myself from this field, or I remove this field from me, that term is someone who's being machrim, disengaging from a field. That field becomes holy of holies. So if someone were to say, this field is hefker, I'm declaring it ownerless, that's an ownerless field. Whoever comes first can come and take it. It's uncommon, but it could happen. But if someone says, I'm being machrim the field, I'm so upset, I so don't like this field, I so don't like this plot of land, this piece of real estate, I want to be machrim it, I want to have nothing to do with it because it's too much for me, in that case, it doesn't go to the first finder or the first grabber. Instead, it becomes holy and designated to Hashem, even more so than somebody who donates to Hashem. So there's two ways you can give something to Hashem. You can either give something to Hashem by way of donating it, and that's called hektish. And the trick is that if it was made hektish, if it was made holy, then you could change your mind, you could redeem it. It's a big mitzvah. Then there's something else called chayrim. When a person lets go, removes themselves from the land, removes the land from themselves, that also becomes part of the Beis HaMikdash fund, but that can never be redeemed. And that's the second step, chayrim, and this we're looking for ourselves now. Why would that be called an abomination word? A word called chayrim. At the end of the day, it's a gift to Hashem. Maybe it wasn't given in the best possible way. Maybe it wasn't given in the ideal way. But at the end of the day, that field that did belong to so-and-so, and now belongs to the Beis HaMikdash, why call it chayrim? Abhorrent? An abomination? A chayrim? How does it connect? And as I said, this detail will carry a lot of halachic differences, but in the context of what we're looking for, it's going to help us understand that although Hashem gets this field, the message that we need to hear is that it's not the way to work, and it's abhorrent to live this way. Let's see it inside. This is from the Sefer HaShirashim that describes why the use of the word chayrim is used in this context in its literal sense. If you like dikduk, you might appreciate this. If you don't like dikduk, then you're probably like me. So don't worry, we're going to skim through it. We're just going to read it just for a second. And then we're going to go on to the Sefer HaChinuch that describes it a little more. Here says the Sefer HaShirashim. Anything that a person declares chayrim to Hashem, even though the item itself is not destroyed vis-a-vis the owner, it is as if it's destroyed, for they can no longer benefit from it. Chayrim means something that's an abomination and shall be destroyed. Just like we had earlier, if something was part of idolatry, it's a chayrim, which means excommunicated, and the only recipe, the only destination is to destroy it. So why are we using the word chayrim here? It says that Sefer HaShirashim, it fits. Because although we don't literally destroy it, in the original owner's mind, and for all intents and purposes of the original owner, they can no longer benefit from this field that they so let go of. It's as if it was destroyed for them. It doesn't get destroyed, of course, it goes to the Beis HaMikdash, but that's why the word chayrim is appropriate, because for the owner's perspective, it gets totally let go of. If you like Yishrashim, that's an answer for you. Moving right along into the Sefer HaChinuch. The Sefer HaChinuch wants us to understand a little bit about why we're talking like this. If someone says their field is hefker, okay, nothing done wrong. They've given it away to whoever wants it. Whoever wants it can have it. There's no problem with that. It's not ideal, but it's no problem with that. The person who donates something to the Mishka Beis HaMikdash, oh, fantastic guy, donation to Hashem, brothers. This person's almost the same, it would seem. Chayrim. You let go like that, you so disabandon the field, chayrim, abomination. Says the Sefer Chinuch, listen carefully. As long as the Jewish people are devoted to Hashem's Torah and mitzvahs, only good will come to them. And they will be supported by an abundance of blessing and a generous and pure spirit. That's the beginning of this year's Parshah. Bechukosai teleichu. Nesati gishmechem batim. Bitam. The opposite, curses and destruction, will be for the enemies. Therefore, if someone, in a fit of melancholy, in a bad mood, in a weak moment, utters an expression of curse or chayrim about their own money or their own land, which are really blessed, because everything we have are blessings. The Torah informs us that one cannot really remove an item from the domain of blessing to another cursed domain. It shouldn't work. When we have stuff, the things that are ours, that have been gifted to us, are blessings. They're pure goodness. If I'm in a bad mood and I turn around and call it a curse, even though it's mine, and it was given to me by Hashem, and therefore it's definitely a blessing, but I've called it a curse, it shouldn't work. How can I curse something that's blessed? For everything that belongs to a Jew really belongs to Hashem, who is blessed. Says the Chinuch. How could you utter such a thing? How could one say that what I have is cursed and chayrim? Where we're going, nevertheless, because we now know that this person really wants to remove this item from their possessions, we'll give them what they wished for and return the item to its true master, and then it will become truly holy. Says the Chinuch. Tremendous. On the one hand, it's called a chayrim, and the same pasuk ends off by saying, Holy of Holies. This chinuch itself, you could think about for hours. The stuff that I have are blessings from Hashem to me. If I go and call them a curse and say I have nothing to do with it, they don't become cursed. But I've done an abomination. I've named Hashem's bracha as a curse and removed myself from it. So for me, the Torah says, you know what, that's what you want to have it. But the actual item itself, the actual brachas, blessings, items of goodness of Hashem, they have gone back to the original owner. They've gone back to, it's as if you wrote in the envelope, return to sender. Hashem sent a bracha, and I said, return to sender, I don't want it. Return to sender? Holy of others. It went back to Hashem, who is ultimate holiness, and that's where it stays. It's Hashem's holiness. Says the Chinuch, the word chayrim matches with saying at the end of the pasuk, Holy of Holies. Because for the cursor, the one who abandoned it, it remains a curse and is removed from it. And Hashem, who is the source of all blessings and goodness, it goes back to being Holy of Holies. So the answer we're putting on so far is, says the Chinuch, chayrim describes the owner's attitude towards a field. You value the field and therefore donate it. They didn't want it, and therefore let's go, becomes a donation. It goes one step further. Because the Pirush on the Chinuch, or one of the Pirushim, was the Kontresim Shiurim, the Yisrael Zev Gustman, says actually what the Chinuch is telling us is that there was an issue created by me uttering bad words about Hashem's brachas. I've said nasty things about Hashem's bracha. So for me, it remains the cursed field. And the Torah then takes the field, makes a holy of holies. How so? In order to rectify, fix, damage control, the problem that I've created, it therefore has to be made back holy in order to rectify my problem. Let's just read this very quickly. In my humble opinion, the concept of chayrim is as follows. In truth, one who declares the property chayrim does not intend to donate it to the priest, nor to the temple treasury. Rather, they simply declare chayrim, cursed. All the pursued laws of chayrim are only there to fix the curse. Interesting idea. Indeed, the mission does not say the owner gives it to the Kohen. Rather, it says the property is given to the Kohen. Because I didn't give it to the Kohen. I said, I have nothing to do with this. I don't give it to nobody. No Beis Hamikdash, no Kohen. I'm in a bad mood. I'm throwing a fit. But it's given to the Kohen, implying this was not the owner's intention, rather the Torah's way of handling the Cherem. It also does not say the field is given to a Kohen like Truma, implying that it's given to the Kohen like the other rights of the priesthood. Rather, giving it to a Kohen is simply the protocol for a Cherem field, the fix under the circumstances the Kohen has to take care of it to make it all the joys. So who receives the Cherem field? It's Holy of Holies, goes to a Kohen, and the way let go can never redeem it. And he says, by the way, this is what the Chinuch meant. The Sefer Chinuch writes explicitly, as we said, Cherem is a curse and pronounces the property, that becomes forbidden for the owner to derive any benefit from it. We obey the owner's wishes to make it a cursed field, but we fix the curse. We fix the curse by giving it to a Kohen. Therefore, once the Cherem field is a Kohen's possession, it becomes permitted for anyone, even the original owner, to benefit from it. So it's only not allowed to have any benefit until the curse is fixed. Once it belongs to the Kohen, so it's not like it's forbidden for any benefit, it's already fixed the curse. So we understand how the Chinuch uses the word Cherem and Kodesh Kodashim in the same pasuk to help us understand the halachic ramifications of somebody cursing or letting go of abandoning the field in such a way. That's the halachic angle. Between the lines, we've picked up a whole new understanding of what it means to own something, to have something. And we have a lot of things. The average house in a Western society has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of items in it. This, that, and the other. And often we don't know what it's this. We have no clue how it's in our house until we start packing to move, or your Pesach cleaning, or whatever else we're doing. And all these items, everything we have, is a blessing from Hashem. When an owner gets rid of their property, they are condemning something good and can never take it back. So if we put it to good use, and we donate it, or we give it to somebody else who can use it, then we've upgraded it, we've kept the ball rolling, we've kept it afloat. But to say this thing is getting me mad, I want to have nothing to do with it. In other words, uprooting its ability, its blessingness of it, no, that's not it. So here's the Gemara in the Sanhedrin talks about the idea of being able to see the goodness in everything that we have. I'm going to say, at this point, we've finished the Talmudic analyzing the Cherem and the Erech. We compared and contrasted a donation to somebody who says, I have nothing to do with this. And we learned that making a donation is commendable. But abandoning things, writing things off, not good. And the reason why it's not good is because I failed to see the blessings of Hashem in the items that He gave to me. That, when I don't see the hand of Hashem as a blessing, if I don't see the blessings of Hashem in my life, in the items of my life, in the things that Hashem has given to me, that's not good. And it doesn't help. And what we're going to learn is that the opposite to missing the goodness and the blessing in the items that I have, the opposite of that is being grateful for the goodness and for the blessings in the things that I have. And for the next 10 minutes, I want to talk about how when we learn from Erechim that missing or not noticing the brachas in our life carries a big price tag, not only when it comes to working and elevating and putting to use the things that we have, but in everything in our life requires that upgrade of constantly focusing and figuring out ways to notice brachas, to notice the goodness in our life, not just because we'll be more productive. We will be. And we won't end up in the cherem situation. Doesn't mean we'll be collecting, because we can make donations. And we can make meaningful things without having to collect stuff. But it means that we will, first of all, be more purposeful, but also everything in our life will be upgraded. The Gemara describes the difference between Cheskia HaMelech, who was one of the king and Malchus based David, who Hashem chose to make King Mashiach. The story was of Sennacherib, who surrounded Yerushalayim with a mighty superpower army, and the king, the Yiddish king, was so sure, in the words of the Navi, confident that Hashem will bring salvation, knowing that if God forbid Chas v'Shalom Yerushalayim fell, he'd be the first to die. He went to sleep peacefully that night, without a shadow of a worry in his mind. The Navi said that they will be okay. There's nothing to worry about. And that bitachon in Hashem brought out the greatest miracles. And the whole army of Sennacherib was thrown into pandemia, and the victory was unbelievably miraculous. But in that story, the Gemara says, is described with one of the words, Lemarbe Hamishra or L'Shalom in Kates. The word Lemarbe, the second letter is a mem. But if you notice in the Hebrew, instead of using a regular mem in the middle of the word, it uses a ender mem, a final mem, which is closed. And the Gemara describes in Sanhedrin, why does the Pasuk spell Lemarbe with a closed mem? And it basically tells us Cheskia was supposed to be Mashiach. And the story of the miracle of winning over Sennacherib was supposed to be the Bechemes Gog and Magog, and the prelude to coming to final redemption. But it got cancelled, delayed. Why? Says the Gemara, because Cheskia never said thank you. He didn't celebrate the miracles enough. Had Cheskia celebrated the miracles, that would have been the big shofar. But the absence of gratitude held back the Geula. Held back the Geula because we weren't grateful for the miracles that came. Just a few weeks ago, when they had the enormous Nissen, where Iran sent rockets and ballistic and all the different things, the cruise missiles and the rest, and the drones, there was dancing on the streets of Yerushalayim. They were dancing around the miracles to say thank you to Hashem, because gratitude is essential. We must say thank you. It brings more Geula. Here's another quote that describes that the rain, first time the rain fell, was only once the human beings were created. There was no rain on day 4, 5, or 6 until after the human being, Adam and Chava, were created, who would appreciate and be grateful for the rain which make things grow. This is how the Rashi explains it. Gratitude is what becomes the catalyst. And then you have the same sort of idea. What does it mean to be a kafui tova? To ignore and the goodness of Hashem. Kafui tova. To be ingrate and ungrateful is a subtle way of being a heretic, of not noticing that Hashem is in control of the world. So complete gratitude is, number one, is to recognize the blessings in life. To recognize the good things that we have, even if we have tzaros. Somehow Hashem wants us, expects us, and encourages us to find somehow the fortitude to notice the brachas. And the step 2 is to recognize that if the brachas came to us, there's something out there that sent us those brachas. If a gift was given, the gift of the giver, not just the gift, but the gift demonstrates that there's someone who sent the gift. And to recognize Hashem is a source of all good things that sent along that goodness. And although I have maybe strong complaints against Hashem, I must equally, and maybe even foremost, first also have gratitude to Ribbono Shel Olam for the goodness that He gave to me. Number 1, for the gifts, and number 2, for the fact that Hashem cares enough to give me those gifts. And this is one powerful, it's a long letter, but I want to finish off with this. Because the Rebbe asks us practically to try and focus on the good things. I'm going to read it very quickly. I read this letter probably, I don't know, maybe 50 times. Because the letter is so strong. You don't always see the Rebbe speak so harsh. But in this particular case, the Rebbe is talking to somebody who has real tzaros. I think it was a warrior of Parshah. They had a big family, and they were struggling to put bread on the table. And they were feeling broken. It's hard to imagine what it feels like for somebody who can't provide for their own family whilst we're not in it. Maybe we should never know. But it's a real struggle. And they wrote and they reached out to the Rebbe, asking the Rebbe to help, because it's so hard. And here's the response. Greetings and blessings. This is 5/7/16. It's about a couple years ago. In response to your letter from the month of Kislev, in which you write about your current situation and how in your entire life you have never experienced anything good, and then you ask for a blessing for your wife and children. He was struggling his entire life to try and make ends meet. The Rebbe says, apparently you don't notice the contradiction in your own letter. For someone who, the creator of the world, arranged a match and blessed them with children, may they live many long and happy years, to say that he never experienced anything good in his life is ingratitude to a shocking degree. That's a harsh expression from the Bavitcher Rebbe. There are hundreds and thousands of people who pray every day to be blessed with children, and we give away everything they own for a single son or daughter, and still have not merited to receive this blessing. May Hashem answer the prayer soon. And you, who did receive these blessings apparently without having to pray for it excessively, do not recognize the wealth and happiness therein, and write in your letter what was mentioned above. Never don't want to repeat. Never seen anything good in his life. Moreover, you conclude that you don't believe that Hashem will ever help you, for you believe it is decreed upon you to be poor and miserable your entire life. This is the most important part. Please read it with me. Obviously, I don't mean that one who has to be... let's read it. Obviously, I don't mean that one has to be poor or unhealthy, etc. I just want to draw your attention to the fact that maybe the meager income and poor health stem from the fact that you don't recognize Hashem's blessings in an area even more important than perfect health and a comfortable income, which is the blessing of having sons and daughters who follow Hashem's ways. When one doesn't recognize the brachas they already have, especially when they ignore them to such a degree that is expressed in the harsh expressions that you use in your letter, why is it so shocking that they don't receive additional blessings from above? Powerful. The letter continues and says, I hope that these few lines will suffice to open your eyes to see the situation for what it is. When you begin to serve Hashem with true internal joy, Hashem's blessings relating to health and income will certainly increase, as can be understood from many sources, including the Zohar, Volume 2, 184b, which says in the Rebbe's Chasima. The key to being able to get more brachas is to be grateful and to be full of joy. Notice the brachas and rejoice with them. There's a similar sort of idea. The basic idea is, how do we become grateful? How do we become happy from the good things we have, especially if we're struggling? And the majority of our mind space and our heart's bandwidth is being taken up with a constant peddling and trying to make it work the whole time. How can we have more bandwidth and more mind space to be able to find somehow the energy to be grateful? And there are good answers. The question's a good question. But the ambition to stay grateful and stay joyful is so important. We must look for answers to how we can do this. Number one is, keep our speech positive. We can choose what we say or don't say. If I'm feeling really, really in Gerard, if I'm feeling really, really in a bad mood, stay stum. My friends used to say, if you have nothing good to say, don't say it. But when I do open my mouth, choose positive speech. And when you speak positively, magic. It puts us into a more positive mood. There's a few quotes here. And another important idea is, make an effort to express things. Ritual gratitude. Keep on saying words of gratitude, even if you don't mean it. This is the famous story of the Baal Shem Tov, which we're going to skip because we're against the clock. And there's one more important thing. Great quote. Even though the wine belongs to its owner, gratitude is given to the one who pours it. What do we mean? Everything comes from Hashem. Everything comes from Hashem. So should I say thank you to my mother for what she did to me? Hashem gave it to me. So the Gemara says, no. The wine is from Hashem. But whoever serves it, make sure to say thank you. Why? Because it'll put you into a grateful mode. Find ways to act and to speak gratitude, and the Eibush will bench us. That we'll have the koyach, we'll have the mind space, we'll have the clarity to choose to be grateful, and we'll learn from the Masechtas Erechin not to do cherems. I can't take this anymore. Instead, we'll choose to look at what can I yes do, and what can I be grateful for. And if something's in my possession, it's because Hashem gave it to me. And with that, Hashem should give us more brachas. Because Hashem loves when we're grateful and we're joyful. And that becomes the vacuum that draws Hashem's kindness more and more. We should be a gebenchte Vach, a gebenchte Shabbos Chazak, and a gebenchte Shabbos Mevarchim, with all the good brachas to everybody who needs it. Thank you everybody for joining. Tzlachat Abba, same time, same place next week.
I have a question.
Thank you very much.
I'm so sorry.
Open the question, go ahead.
Yeah. Could it not also be that Hashem wants us to express that gratitude to others who are the ones pouring, as you say, because in doing that, that gives them something to be grateful for as well. And it brings joy all around, which makes Hashem happier.
100%, but not limited to.
Right.
So for sure, if we can use our gratitude to help somebody else be joyful, you're winning double. But it's not limited to that.
No, because
Speaking
when
grateful-
we're suffering,
Sorry?
also, if a person is suffering and another person realizes that they can find gratitude, this individual, then it gives them reason to draw that strength up within as well.
Fabulous. Fantastic. 100%. And Be'ez Hashem, we should all have that schus of being able to help ourselves and those around us. Yes, like a domino effect. Yeshakeach.
Thank you for this.
Absolutely.